The key takeaway of this rather long post is, stop beating yourself up. We've all done foolish things in our lives, made foolish decisions, spent our time foolishly. That doesn't make us fools, it just means we did something foolish. There is a difference, a very big difference. Same thing with the stronger word, stupid. Does doing something stupid mean that we are stupid? The short answer is no, and the long answer is no. In fact, the only answer is no. We are not fools, nor are we stupid, nor any other hurtful label we may sometimes put on ourselves, even in retrospect. When we look at our past, and we realize our lack of critical thinking when we were in the JWs, we may ask ourselves, how could I have been so stupid? The fact is, being or not being a critical thinker has nothing to do with intelligence. But before we get into that, and the related expression that seems to be so much fun to accuse people of, cognitive dissonance, let's talk about what made us become JWs in the first place, and what that does and doesn't say about us. Regardless of whether we were raised as a JW from an early age, or came in on our own later, we all had experienced a period of transition toward acceptance of the truth, with few exceptions. I know there will always be a few that will say, I had no choice. I get that. But those folks probably at least went through the motions trying to fit in or deal with it for a period of time. Kids don't come with a perfect defense mechanism that works against anything that may come their way. We do what we have to survive in our environment, while always growing. When we were ready, we got out. Again, I say, don't beat yourself up over it. The process for someone who was first in the world included some sort of search for truth, for the answers to the questions about the meaning of life, what happens to us when we die, why is there so much suffering in the world, etc. For those who grew up JWs, we already thought we had those answers, and that everyone who wasn't a JW did not. But even for those in the latter category, there was probably some defining moment or period of time when we made the truth our own, to use a nauseating JW expression. Then we went along with the program, not just to please our parents, but because we really thought we had the truth and wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves. In any case, what were the concerns that made the JW message appeal to us? Maybe a loved one died, and we had to believe something positive about why, lest the pain eat us alive. Maybe it was some disturbing events in the news, involving war, famine, or any number of other severe problems. How about more positive things? What were the positives that made the JW message appeal to us? We came to love a God that was real to us because we thought he has the most endearing, admirable qualities imaginable. We came to love an ancient man who we were taught gave his life for us and who treated everyone with love, respect, compassion, and non-judgment. What do any of those things say about us? That we were and are a good person, plain and simple. We were attracted to goodness because we were and are good. None of that says one single thing about our level of intelligence. I don't know about you, but my earliest memory of learning anything from the JWs was about the condition of and hope for the dead. There was an abundance of Greek and Hebrew words that seemed to confirm what I was learning and which already made logical sense to me. The fact that they didn't teach an automatic promotion to heaven or an eternity in an unrelenting and inescapable hellfire already agreed with what I thought happens when we die. That we just cease to be and our bodies decompose. I thought that was worlds smarter than any other religious group I ever heard of. Learning about a deity that was completely inaccessible to me when I was attending Lutheran services began an ever-growing love for that God. I was convinced that what I was learning was true. Not the truth yet, but true. Further learning edged me toward the thought that this is the truth. But I wasn't quite there yet. There were still many things to yet learn, mainly things that would have been warning flags had I learned them earlier. There is a reason for that. No one would ever fall for a cult if the things that obviate its cult status were observable or knowable early on. At some point we, yes, you and I, decided that this is the truth. I believe that for everyone, but certainly for me, that is the moment when critical thinking about the JWs stopped and cognitive dissonance in the context of the JWs started. The moment we decided that, not only is everything we have learned from the JWs so far true, but everything we will learn will also be true. The reason for the caps above is that many of us did not completely abandon critical thinking altogether, nor did we fall into a pattern of cognitive dissonance about everything. We just became loyal defenders of what we called the truth, perhaps to a fanatical extent. It probably was only then that we started to more fully understand the negative things that now had to be interpreted positively, since this is the truth, e.g. disfellowshipping, removal or removing, or maybe removementism, the policy on blood, the concept that the whole world outside of the JWs is evil, and any number of other things that would have been red flags but came after the indoctrination got serious. We probably didn't see any of those things as bad things, but even if we did, the incredible goodness we had come to know certainly outweighed the bad, so why stop now? Personally, there were always new things that I questioned without getting a satisfactory answer, usually having to do with prophecy, e.g. the trumpet blasts of Revelation that occurred in the 20s and 30s when JFR said whatever he did at a convention somewhere in the good old USA. Really? The fact that the King of the North story in Daniel seemed to abound with great detail, involving the period beginning with the death of Alex the Great's death and continuing through the 1st century AD, then leaping over an inexplicable period of deep silence straight into the World War I era. Huh? And on and on. My critical thinking skills did not allow me to believe that the JW explanations were flawless, but they were flimsy enough to allow me to think, they're probably right. But if they're not, in time it will be straightened out. Meanwhile, this is still the truth. I don't think that demonstrates dumbness. I think it's just cockeyed optimism. I mean, maybe after Armageddon we'll find out that God's name is actually Ralph Moskowitz, or that the number 144,000 really applies to cockroaches in the Serengeti. I don't know. The point is that it seemed we had what we needed to get past the big A, and who knows what we would then learn. Can we now look back and see how gradual the process was? How knowledge about some wonderfully lofty things subtly morphed into a system of thought that, lo and behold, put us at odds with the world in general in many key ways. Does that make us dumb? I repeat, it makes us good. We are attracted to goodness because we are good. Let's think about this just a little bit more. If we were stupid to have allowed ourselves to be indoctrinated, where did the intelligence suddenly come from for us to wake up? Was there some physiological change in our brains that increased our IQs by 20 or so points? Are we smarter today than we were before that day? True, we're always learning, but are we really more cognitively gifted than when we were in? If so, what accounted for the increase? If we keep going at the rate necessary for those moments of revelation, how long will it be before we have the brain of Albert Einstein? We all have different levels of cognition, or smarts. That is obvious and quite unimportant, but if you are smarter than me, does that mean that you also woke up quicker than me? If I, on the other hand, woke up quicker, does that fact prove superior intellect on my part? If so, what accounts for the fact that I started brushing my teeth with shaving cream this morning? Now a few words about critical thinking and cognitive dissonance. Albert Einstein thought for quite some time after the publishing of his theory of general relativity that the universe consisted entirely of the Milky Way galaxy, did not have a beginning, and was theoretically either expanding or contracting. His theory predicted expansion, but there was thus far no proof outside of the equation. Until Edwin Hubble discovered that there was more universe outside of the Milky Way, and that it definitely is expanding, hence had a beginning. Hubble proved that to Einstein, who revised his thinking accordingly, referring to his earlier calculations as the biggest blunder of my life. The great genius Einstein had been wrong, because of a lack of critical thinking, not hardly, because of cognitive dissonance. Of course not. He was perfectly willing to revise his thinking and did so. Because he was stupid? No, again. Einstein was wrong simply because he made an honest mistake in the absence of information that was always true but not yet available to him. He was wrong because he was wrong. Cognitive dissonance in the strictest sense, that is when we fail to accept new information because it contradicts cherished beliefs, is a lot more common than we may think. For a moment, stop thinking about JWs when we were in, since we were out, etc. Just think about the world in general. In particular, think about the state of politics and political thought. Even if you hate to, just humor me for a minute. Virtually every society in the world can be divided up between left and right, politically. I know it's more complex than that, especially in certain countries, but it really is pretty much left versus right. Have you ever noticed a tendency toward people on either side to think they are always right, meaning correct, and people on the other side always wrong? That candidate X on one side always lies, but candidate Y on the other side virtually never lies. That candidate X has done nothing but good for us, whereas the opposite is true of candidate Y. How there is an abundance of video and other proof of either contention, but none for the other side, according to which side one is on. How incredibly short people's memories can be regarding disturbing facts about the guy, gal on their side, and how they tend to resort to defending their guy, gal by saying things like, "Oh yeah, well your guy, gal is the biggest liar ever," and the like. Some of the smartest people I know fall for this kind of blind thinking all the time. It is cognitive dissonance on steroids. So it doesn't necessarily say anything about a person's intelligence when they manifest cognitive dissonance and/or lack of critical thinking, especially when it's motive and/or agenda-based. And again, what was our motive for accepting the truth? We were attracted to goodness because we were and are good. It did not and does not say anything about our intelligence. So is it okay to call into question the intelligence of any active JW because they are a JW? We don't get to forgive ourselves for ever being a JW if we also condemn those that are still in. That's not fair. By the same token, thinking that every JW is not smart or has no capacity for critical thinking is not fair either. True, they don't think critically enough about their religious beliefs, but that doesn't make them stupid or mean that they don't have any capacity for critical thinking in regard to anything. So if we are to stop beating ourselves up, it only makes sense that we need to not beat other people up as well. Then we can really stop beating ourselves up.